Hello, everyone, and welcome to Elevating Your Life. Oh, it's going to be fantastic today. I'm thrilled to share with you my awesome guest. We have with us Nina Cheng. She is the founder of the Eastern Philosophy, a traditional Chinese medicine online apothecary with one of the largest social accounts on social media in Asian medicine. She also serves as communications officer and board member of the International Association for the Study of Traditional Asian Medicine, the foremost community of scholars and practitioners devoted to understanding the history and contemporary practice of Asian medicines. And she is also the publisher of the journal Asian Medicine. She is currently studying history of medicine at Johns Hopkins Graduate School of Medicine with a research focus on mental health in medieval China, as well as medical aromatics throughout ancient China. And she is the author of Chinese Medicine for the Mind, which is just fantastic. And it is a science-based guide to improving mental health with traditional Chinese medicine. It is the first practical guide to improving mental health via traditional Chinese medicine. From Nina Cheng, Nina, you do so many wonderful things and you know so much. I am really excited to chat with you. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you so much for having me, Paula.
You're welcome. And I would love to start. Would you like to share anything further of your background and maybe kind of what triggered you to write this amazing book?
Yeah, well, the reason I wrote this book is mostly because I noticed from my work running the Eastern philosophy that a lot of people didn't really understand Chinese medicine at all in this country. Well, not only in this country, but pretty much around the world. And there were a lot of misconceptions about what Chinese medicine is or what it's useful for. And the number one misconception that I saw was that that it was not scientific or not scientifically proven, and B, that it was mostly for physical ailments. So I think in the US, people are really familiar with acupuncture, but they're not as familiar with herbal medicine. So, when people think of Chinese medicine, probably the thing that they're thinking of first is, oh, it's acupuncture for injuries or for, like, I don't know, lower back pain or something. But there's very little knowledge about how Chinese herbal medicine can help. And it can pretty much be used for any ailment or, any condition that one might have. And actually, mental health is one area that it's really effective in. And I think people are really amazed to hear that not only is it used for mental health in East Asia, but there's hundreds, maybe even thousands of clinical studies on its efficacy for mental health. So that was the impetus for the book. And personally, I mean, I'm I live in the US, but I've lived in a lot of different countries around the world. Both my parents are Chinese, and I kind of grew up with Chinese medicine basically from infancy. So I've used so many of the formulas myself, just, through my own lived experience. I've had a lot of really beneficial experiences with Chinese medicine. And, it might not be the first thing that you reach for every issue that you have, but there's a lot of instances where it can be really beneficial. So that was, combined with the reason I mentioned before. Those are kind of the two main reasons I wanted to write this book, and also just bring more awareness to Chinese medicine in the US.
Yes. And herbal medicine, it can help with mental, like burnout and such, and then things like our gut health, so many things. Let's start with, if you wouldn't mind sharing some of the benefits that really have amazed you and really made you passionate about what herbal medicine and what they can do for people.
Oh, I mean, there's really just so many. Um, One herbal formula that I mentioned quite a few times in the book And it's actually, if you open the book, it's what we talk about on the very first page. And I say we because I am the only author on the front cover, but actually there's a lot of people involved in this book. So there were many other experts who essentially co-wrote individual sections. So one of them is Brant Stigley, who's probably the foremost Chinese medical psychiatry expert in the English-speaking world, and he's based out of Portland, Oregon. But he wrote a lot of the clinical sections. So he has, almost 30 years of experience with Chinese medical psychiatry under his belt, whereas I'm not a practitioner, I'm more a medical historian. So one of the formulas that I really focus on is it's probably the most popular formula in all of Chinese medicine, and it's used for a variety of conditions like anxiety or depression or, even like PMS or like mood disorders. And it's almost completely unknown in the Western medical world, but there's so many studies. It's actually the most clinically studied formula as well in Chinese medicine. And the study results are pretty astounding if people are actually looking through them and finding out about this herbal medicine, in that for pretty much every mental health condition you can think of, from insomnia to what I've just listed, it was shown to meet or exceed Western biomedical prescription drugs.
Wow.
So, for like mild to moderate anxiety, for insomnia, it was shown to outperform benzodiazepines. So I think that's just something pretty miraculous about herbal medicine,
And
in
is
that
is
there.
it what is it called? Is it something that we have available to us here in the US?
It's very popular. So usually it's translated as like free and easy wonder. I mean, in Chinese it's called 逍遥丸 or 逍遥散, depending on what form it comes in. But yeah, we have it on our website. You can pretty much get it anywhere, and it's been used for over 1,000 years. I think it originated in I think nine like middle of the 10th century, basically. So it has a very long history of use, millions of people who have taken it. And it's just unfortunate that it's not more well known. It has a really good safety profile as well. So
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, that's only one example, but there's probably, tens of the thousands of similar examples.
Yes. Yes. And what would you say about can they find information in your book and on your website that about longevity and anti-aging benefits?
Yeah, so we do talk a decent amount about longevity on our social media. So sometimes we'll have, like food recipes for, like there was one we did of a longevity porridge. You can also find it on our website. And the secret ingredient of that, if you will, is instead of water for the porridge, you're using an herb called astragalus, which is now getting a lot of attention in the US as well, because it's been shown to lengthen telomeres, which are the end caps on DNA that shorten as we age.
Oh my
So,
gosh.
yeah, it's really interesting. So, you know, at this point, 2026, I think, um, as I said earlier, a lot of people have this misconception that Chinese medicine isn't scientific, but I think, with more and more studies coming out on Chinese medicine herbs, you're just seeing how much of it is scientific, or how behind the sciences were in terms of validating Chinese medical herbs. So
Yes.
now we're just starting to see that come out,
Yes.
and they're being heralded as like, you know, breakthroughs, but they've also been used for thousands of
For
years.
thousands of years, thousands of years. And on your website, people can learn about and purchase a lot of the herbs that you talk about in your book.
Some of them, I mean, we don't really sell herbs individually, and herbs in general aren't really ever used individually for the most part if you're trying to treat conditions. So in Chinese medicine, and we also mentioned this in the book, any herbal medicine that you're given typically is in a multi-herb format. And there's a lot of reasons for that, but the number one reason is that, well, okay, two reasons that are primary reasons. One is that no condition that you have is considered just a condition in isolation. So, there's a lot of patterns that we mentioned in the book. So, if you're talking about, okay, this person has anxiety, in the West, you would just say this person has anxiety. But in Chinese medicine, you would say, okay, what like constellation of symptoms do they have? Because there's like at least 12 different types of anxiety. You might have an anxiety where another symptom is that you have like gastrointestinal issues, or your heart is beating really quickly, and those would be considered kind of different types of anxiety. So every herbal medicine that one would get would be treating those individual symptoms. So essentially, symptoms are never considered in isolation. They're considered alongside, the exact pattern of other symptoms that you would have.
Yeah.
So then that's one of the reasons why there's multiple herbs in any herbal medicine you would get, because they're treating the entire, it's a more holistic approach.
Yes.
And also, the herbal formulas essentially mitigate any side effects within the formula. So they anticipate, okay, this one herb, might be the primary herb that we're using, but let's say it's a bit warming and you might feel heaty, so you might sweat. So then let's add in another herb that contains like a lot of electrolytes, so that if you're sweating a lot, then you can kind of mitigate the negative side effects through this secondary herb, which basically helps with the water loss.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a pretty beautiful thing.
Oh, that is so awesome. And, it must be fascinating, Nina, to learn and discover, what we can do for ourselves with these herbs and these medicines, with everyday conditions that, we could all experience, and to be able to share that with others.
Yeah, there's a lot. There's a lot to discover for sure.
There is. There
And
is.
I really only touched the very tip of the iceberg. There's a lot more underneath.
Oh, so something, for example, you familiar with kombucha? That's something I'm very passionate about.
Yeah, kombucha.
Kombucha,
Yeah, the
kombucha.
drink. Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah,
had some this morning. Yeah. What's your thoughts on that?
yeah. Yeah, I mean, we've been, brewing it at home
Uh-huh.
for a few years. Um, it's kind of funny because it was a drink that, essentially my parents just had around the house. It wasn't really considered like a premium drink or anything. It was just, something that people kind of thought of as like a rustic beverage. So yeah, I mean, it's a fermented food, and I do talk about in my book how um, ideally, if you're trying to improve your diet, that you should try to eat or drink more fermented foods or beverages, because fermented food and drink have a lot of health benefits in the process of fermentation. Kombucha, yeah, I think it's definitely beneficial for the vast majority of people, but it is pretty acidic. So I would say not to overdo it, because I think in general there's a growing awareness of trying to maybe eat or drink less acidic products, because the majority of the American diet tends to be more acidic. And, that kind of can cause some longer term issues for people who are sensitive to that. So, yeah, I think one or two a day is great for the most part. And essentially, it's just tea that's been fermented into, like a probiotic rich beverage. It's kind of tangy and delicious. But I also have bad teeth. Like as a kid, I had a lot of cavities, so I try not to drink too much or too often.
Is there a particular tea that is your favorite that you enjoy on a regular basis, that has great health benefits for you? Do you have
Yeah,
a favorite?
and hopefully you
Yeah.
can still Hear me okay?
Yes,
Because it
yes.
seems like I'm having some network okay, great. Yeah, so the tea that I talk about most often in the book, and it's the one that I recommend to most people, it's called pu'er tea, so Puer, and it's a fermented tea from southwestern China. So it's the Yunnan province, which borders, Cambodia. It's basically Southeast Asia, but in China. And that tea is, I think it would probably be considered the most healthy tea of all teas. So it has so many interesting health benefits, likely because of its fermentation process. But I mean, the most recent study I read is that it actually improves blue light induced depression. I was in a new animal study. But I think Americans who are used to drinking coffee might really enjoy this tea. There are two types of it. So one is a bit more similar to like a coffee profile. That's the ripe version. And then there's the raw version, which is more similar to like a green tea. It's a bit more grassy and fresh. But I'm mostly drinking the ripe version. Actually, I have it next to
Oh,
me.
I love it.
Yeah, and it's a really fascinating tea because of the process that it undergoes, but also because unlike pretty much all other teas, there's a real focus on ancient trees for pu'er tea. So the best pu'er tea comes from ancient wild trees that have been around for over 1,000 years. So I've visited some of these trees. I mean, they're huge. They're several stories tall. People have to like climb on top to pick the leaves. And the really high quality ones, sometimes they're only picked once a year. There's a really, really like intricate process around picking the tea leaves, and they're all done by hand. Whereas, the majority of tea that you would see, they're raised by machine, they're kept really low, and it's more of like a industrial farming process.
Mhm.
But these ones are really special, and you can absolutely taste the difference.
And
So, I
where
mean, not
would,
all of them are that fancy.
yeah, where would we uh, get access to that tea, Nina? Where would
Yeah,
we find it available?
I have a pretty large selection on our site because it is the tea that I think is the most medicinal, and it is kind of like it's not really considered mainstream in the US. If I meet someone who's aware of it, I'm pretty surprised. So we do have it on our website. There are definitely some smaller, tea shops that would probably have it, especially in a larger city on the West Coast or in New York. But yeah, most like tea cafes or something probably
Yeah.
wouldn't have it. It is a bit of a niche tea.
I am excited I'm going to order it from your website. I'm really excited to try it.
Yeah, let me know if you do, and I'll send in I'll add some goodies in there.
Oh, thank you. I'm going to. I'm gonna order it. Oh, I'm excited.
We'll
And,
look out for that.
and having access and learning about all these things we can do to help our body, help our mindset. I mean, really, that's very exciting. It's very exciting you sharing that with us, Nina.
Yeah, it's pretty cool for me as well to be able to do so, and to be
Before
able
I
to
forget
find
to ask, please
a job
share your
like
website
this.
address with everyone. Tell everyone what your website is so they can check you out. What is your website?
Oh, could you say that again?
Please share your website
Uh-oh.
address with us.
Sorry, could you say that again?
Your
Oh,
website
yes. So it's
information.
theeasternphilosophy.com. Yeah. And on social media, if you're on Instagram, it's the Eastern Philosophy. So we post a lot of videos on there. And I think for someone who's just starting out, that's probably a good place to start because it's very beginner friendly. There's a lot of tips and recipes and explanations of various, Chinese medicine remedies on there. So yeah, you can find us either way.
Oh, I love it. I love it. With all the studies that you have read about and seen and understood, is there a particular something or message that you'd like to share that really is kind of a mind-blowing thing for us to know? What has been, very
Yeah.
passionate for you?
So this, I think, is probably one of the easiest, hacks that someone can employ. And it's something that is discussed a lot in the Asian community, but essentially it's to drink warm water or room temperature water, essentially to stay away from iced beverages. And I think, again, people assume that this is sort of an old wives' tale, but I've read a bunch of studies on this topic. And I did do a post about it on Instagram a couple months ago as well, just summarizing all the studies on, why iced beverages are bad for you. But I think if you make that one change, you'll see a huge difference in how you're digesting food and how you feel. And there's even a studies, it's an animal study, so it's not a human study, but there's even a study showing that drinking iced beverages has the link to Alzheimer's, which is really frightening. So
Mhm.
yeah, so basically, I think just to be safe, it's best just to stick with room temperature or warm
Yeah,
water if you can help it.
I love that. I love that. Wow. Something else I'd like to talk about is incense and fragrance. Something that I read is you said wise scent was medicine long before it was perfume. But tell us about incense and how a little bit how we can gain from that.
Yeah, I mean, incense really has a pretty interesting history. It's something I've also been studying academically. And I mean, pretty much in every culture, it was first used medically, not as a, like a recreational thing, I guess you would say. But essentially, I mean, there have been some studies on aromatic herbs as well, in China specifically. And one that I thought was really interesting, or a series that I thought were really interesting, and it's on one specific type of, I guess we would call it herbal fumigation, but essentially it's one herb that they burned, and that herb, which is Chinese mugwort, pretty well-known herb, it had a better effect on air filtration, or essentially killing bacteria and viruses in the air, than a high quality air filter. And they were using this in hospitals and medical wards in China during COVID. And they only needed to burn it 1 hour a day. And it had like the same or better effect versus high quality air filters. So that was really compelling for me. And, obviously there's not a ton of studies on incense or, like aromatics, because I think, as many people would know, studies are expensive. And in the US, it tends to be larger pharmaceutical companies who can afford larger studies. But the studies that are coming out of some of the academic institutions are just really fascinating. So we do stock a bunch of what we would call like medical incenses on our site. They're not really well known in the US again, but they are pretty common in East Asia. And there's so many different types of medical incense. Some are for like insomnia or for improving mood, or like feeling more cheerful, I guess you could say.
Uh-huh,
So some
uh-huh.
are kind of bright incenses, and then there's others that are kind of meant for like dispelling cold or even for allergies. Essentially, they're using the same herbs in like herbal formulas that you would take by mouth, but they tend to be a bit more aromatic. I think we're only seeing a very small selection, because I think I might be the only one selling them in the US. But hopefully more people can become aware of them and get interested in them.
I love it. I love it. I'm excited to check that out. Nina, we just
Yeah,
have a few
let
more
me know what you
minutes
think.
left. Honey, what last message do you want to share with everybody today before we say goodbye?
Okay, that got cut off at the end, but
Oh,
I think you
yeah,
just said it was a last message for me to share.
yes, 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 last message to
Um,
everyone.
well, okay, I think this is something that my parents have always told me, and I'm really bad at it, but essentially to go to bed before 12. So, it's something that's emphasized a lot in Chinese medicine, essentially that, there's a body clock, and it's something that I didn't really believe in for a long time, because I thought, essentially if I'm getting 7 or 8 hours a day, why does it matter what time I go to sleep, right? If it's like 3 a.m. or if it's 11 p.m. or what have you. But for the purposes of this book, I actually did a ton of research on this topic, and there are actually some pretty frightening, um, negative effects if you do chronically stay up late. And the Chinese system has essentially 2 hour allocations for every organ in terms of, at this time, it's like the hour that the heart is at its peak, and at this time, it's like when the liver is at its peak. And there are some pretty interesting studies now showing, essentially there is a lot of reason to this like ancient thinking. So you can read more about it in the book, but essentially, if you do try to go to sleep in a way that's consistent with the daylight and nighttime hours that naturally exist, then there are a lot of health benefits to that.
Yeah, that is awesome. That is awesome. I mean, you share so much in your book. I just love it. Chinese medicine for
Thank
the
you so
mind.
much.
It's a fantastic gift for us. And real quick before we say goodbye, do you see yourself writing another book down the road? Do you see another book coming down the road one day? Oh, Nina, I think I'm
I'm
losing you.
sorry, I couldn't hear any of that
Okay.
for some
That's
reason.
okay. That's
I
okay.
can hear you again now.
Yeah. Just
Okay.
wanted to ask if you're going to be writing
My
another
connection's
book.
not great.
Yes.
Oh, I mean, maybe, but I have no plans
But
to at this
okay.
point. It took a lot
Okay.
of time.
Thank you, dear. Oh, well, everyone, thank you for joining us today. Love, hugs, and blessings. Love, hugs, and blessings, Nina. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Paula. Thanks for having me.
You are so welcome.